She called me a disgrace to her bloodline. I can still hear her voice, cold, sharp, echoing through the dining hall like glass breaking. My own mother, the woman who once held my hand through nightmares, now looked at me as if I were a stranger. Everyone was there, my brother Ethan smirking, my father pretending not to hear, and my sister silently pushing her food around her plate. No one spoke. No one defended me. I remember gripping the edge of the table, trying to stop my hands from shaking. I wanted to scream, to ask why she believed lies over her own daughter. But all that came out was silence. That night wasn't just a family dinner, it was my public execution. She said I didn't deserve our family name, that I had shamed everything she ever built. And the way she said it, calm, deliberate, final, it cut deeper than any slap could. I walked out of that house with tears burning my eyes, but with one promise carved into my heart. I would make her regret every single word. People used to call us the Clark family of Silverwood. Perfect smiles, Sunday brunches, charity galas, we looked like something out of a glossy magazine. My mother, Margaret Clark, made sure of that. Every family photo had to look flawless, not a hair out of place, not a shadow of imperfection. From the outside, we were everything people admired. But inside, there were cracks, small, hidden, and sharp enough to bleed anyone who got too close. I grew up trying to be the kind of daughter she could be proud of. I organized her charity files, stayed late to decorate the halls for her guests, learned how to speak the way she wanted, graceful, polite, like a Clark. But somehow, my efforts were never enough. Ethan can do no wrong, she'd say with that soft smile that used to make me jealous as a child. My older brother, the golden one. He handled the family business, charmed the relatives, and carried our surname like a medal. If he walked into the room, every conversation bent toward him. Then there was Linda, my younger sister. Sweet, shy, and constantly nervous, but in my mother's eyes, she was delicate, precious. The one who needed protection. And then there was me. The middle child, too quiet to be noticed, too independent to be loved. I used to think it was just my imagination, that maybe I was reading too much into her tone, the way her eyes glazed over when I spoke about my achievements. But deep down, I knew. Mothers can hide anger, but they can't fake pride. One evening, during our annual family dinner, I caught her smiling at Ethan across the table, that proud, adoring look that used to belong to me when I was little. I had just shared some good news, a successful fundraiser I'd organized for the local orphanage. But before I could finish, she interrupted me. "That's nice, Hannah," she said, without even looking up. "Ethan, tell us about that new client you signed today." And just like that, my words vanished into the air, forgotten, unimportant. I laughed softly, pretending it didn't matter. I had become good at that, swallowing hurt and calling it maturity. But I started noticing things. The way she locked her documents when I entered the room. How Ethan always seemed to know family matters before I did. Even Dad, quiet and tired, would avoid meeting my eyes whenever I asked questions. Then came the night she told me not to attend the charity board meeting, the one I'd helped her prepare for weeks. "It's better if Ethan represents the family," she said. "You know how people respect a Clark man." Those words stung more than she could imagine. That night, I stared at our framed family portrait, all of us smiling, holding hands, pretending to be whole. And for the first time, I noticed something missing in my mother's eyes. Warmth. Something inside me whispered that our family's perfection was built on lies, and I was about to find out just how deep those lies went. It started with a phone call. My mother's voice was unusually calm when she said, "We're having a small family meeting tonight, Hannah. Don't be late." I didn't think much of it then. Family meetings were rare, usually about business or estate matters, things Ethan and Dad handled while I sat quietly, pretending to matter. That evening, the house looked different. Formal. Stiff. Even the air felt rehearsed. Ethan was already there, sitting near Dad with a folder on his lap and that confident, smug look I'd grown to hate. Mother sat at the head of the table, her pearls perfectly in place, her expression unreadable. When I walked in, she didn't even greet me. "Sit down," she said simply. I did. My palms were already sweating. Ethan opened the folder. Mother and I have been reviewing the family accounts, he began. Something strange came up. He slid a paper across the table toward me, a printed bank slip showing a large withdrawal under my name. My heart dropped. What is this? Ethan leaned back. You tell us. That's your signature, isn't it? I looked closer. The handwriting was close to mine, but not exact. The date, the amount, none of it made sense. I didn't do this, I whispered. Mother folded her hands. We trusted you with our charity funds, Hannah. You were supposed to manage those accounts. Yes, and I did. Every transaction was approved and recorded. Ethan interrupted, his tone sharp. Except this one. $10,000 gone. Withdrawn in cash. I looked at Dad, hoping for some sign of support, but he just looked down at his coffee cup. His silence said everything. I didn't take that money, I said again, louder this time. Someone's lying. Mother's eyes turned cold. Are you accusing your own brother? The room went silent. I could hear the ticking of the wall clock. Ethan just smirked, pretending to be hurt. I'm not accusing anyone, I said carefully. But this isn't mine. She stood up slowly, her voice trembling with rage. I raised you to be better than this. To protect this family's name, not ruin it. Mom, please. Enough, she snapped. Do you think I'm blind? Do you think I don't see your jealousy every time Ethan succeeds? Her words hit me harder than the accusation. All my life, I had fought to be seen, not compared. But now, I was nothing more than a jealous, lying disappointment in her eyes. Linda tried to speak softly, maybe it's a misunderstanding. Stay out of this, Mother cut her off. You've embarrassed us enough, Hannah. Tears burned behind my eyes. I would never steal from you. You know me. I thought I did, she said quietly. But now, I'm not so sure. The humiliation was unbearable. I felt stripped, exposed, as if every good thing I'd ever done had vanished in one cruel moment. Ethan gathered the papers and placed them neatly back into the folder. Don't worry, Mom, he said. I'll handle the report. We can fix the damage. And that's when I saw it, the briefest flicker of satisfaction in his eyes. He wanted this. Something wasn't right. The bank slip, the timing, the way he was prepared, it was all too perfect. As I walked out of that room, my mother's words followed me like a curse. You've brought shame to this family. But in my chest, something had started to burn, not shame, not fear, but suspicion. That night, I opened Ethan's office laptop while he was out. My hands trembled as I searched through his files. Then I found it, a folder hidden under his client documents, labeled Archive. Inside were multiple bank statements, all forged in my name. My breath caught. The same signature. The same pattern. Ethan had set me up. And my mother, she believed him without a question. As I stood there, staring at the evidence, one thought echoed in my mind, steady and dangerous. He destroyed my name, but I'm going to destroy his truth. After that night, something inside me changed, and so did the way my family looked at me. At first, it was just silence. They stopped including me in family conversations. My mother no longer called me darling, she called me Hannah, like a stranger she barely tolerated. But silence soon turned into whispers. At breakfast, Ethan would chuckle under his breath. Maybe Hannah should pay for the groceries, he'd joke. She's good with withdrawals. Everyone laughed. Even Dad. I forced a smile, pretending it didn't hurt, but every laugh felt like a blade twisting deeper. Then came the dinner parties. The Clark house was famous for its gatherings, elegant, perfect, full of pretense. I was always the one handling details, arranging flowers, welcoming guests. But now, my mother made sure I stayed invisible. At one of those parties, I overheard Mrs. Green, our nosy neighbor, whispering to another woman. That's her, she said, lowering her voice. The one who stole from her own mother. They both looked at me and smiled sweetly as I passed by, pretending not to hear. My stomach twisted. Shame crawled up my skin like fire. Later that night, I confronted my mother quietly in the kitchen. You told her, didn't you? I asked. She didn't look up from her glass of wine. People talk, Hannah. I can't control that. You didn't deny it either, I said, voice breaking. She turned, her expression calm but cruel. I denied it for a while. But honestly, why should I keep defending someone who keeps proving me wrong? Her words hit me like a slap. I wanted to scream, to tell her I had proof Ethan was lying, but something inside me stopped. I realized no evidence would matter. She had already decided who the villain was. Days turned into weeks. Invitations to family lunches stopped. My sister Linda avoided my calls. Even my father started locking his study when I walked by. It was like I didn't exist anymore. One afternoon, I went to the Clark Foundation office, a charity I helped build from scratch. The receptionist looked uncomfortable when I arrived. "I'm sorry, Miss Clark," she said. "Your name has been removed from the board." "What?" "Mrs. Clark asked for your replacement. Ethan will handle everything now." For a moment, the world went quiet. The foundation had been my pride, my proof that I was more than what they saw. And just like that, it was gone. That evening, I sat alone in my room, staring at the photos on my desk. Every smile looked fake now. I could almost hear her voice saying, "You've brought shame to this family." But shame was slowly turning into something else, something colder, sharper. Anger. I started keeping track of every slight, every whisper, every cruel glance. I saved screenshots, bank records, copies of Ethan's emails. Not because I wanted revenge, at least not at first. I just wanted the truth. I wanted someone, anyone, to finally see me. Then came Linda's engagement dinner. The perfect family photo opportunity. Everyone was glowing, happy, united. Except me. Mother told me to stay in the back, just to avoid attention. I stood near the kitchen door, invisible once again, watching her beam with pride beside Ethan and Linda. Then, during the toasts, she raised her glass and said, "To my children, the pride of the Clark family." Everyone clapped. Except me. And as I stood there, my reflection in the mirror behind them caught my eye, silent, forgotten, and broken. But for the first time, I didn't look away. Because deep inside, I knew something was about to change. Something big. Something they wouldn't see coming. And this time, I wasn't going to stay silent. It happened on a Sunday afternoon, the kind of day that used to mean laughter, tea, and my mother's favorite lemon pie. But that day, the air inside our house was heavy. I could feel something wrong before anyone even spoke. When I entered the living room, everyone was already there, my parents, Ethan, and Linda. Even Mrs. Green had been invited, sitting smugly in the corner like she belonged. A few family friends I didn't recognize were also there, watching with curious eyes. "Hannah," my mother said, standing near the fireplace, her voice unnaturally calm. "We need to talk." Her tone made my stomach twist. I sat down, pretending not to notice how Ethan was already holding that same black folder from before, the one filled with his lies. She cleared her throat and looked directly at me. "After everything that has happened, after all the embarrassment and damage to our reputation, your father and I have decided something." My pulse raced. Decided what? She took a deep breath, her expression cold, rehearsed. "You will no longer be part of the Clark estate. Your name will be removed from the family trust, the foundation, and all our official records." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I thought I'd misheard her. "You're disinheriting me?" "It's not personal," she said, though her tone made it sound exactly that. "It's about protecting what's left of our reputation." Ethan spoke next, pretending to sound sympathetic. "Mom's right, Hannah. It's better this way. You need to start over, maybe find a life outside all this." I turned to my father, desperate. "Dad, please say something." He didn't even look at me. He just rubbed his temple and muttered, "Your mother's made her decision." That's when it hit me, I was truly alone. I stood there, heart pounding, tears blurring my vision. "You believe him over me? After everything I've done for this family?" Mother's voice hardened. "You think I'd risk our name for your pride?" I saw the proof. I heard the stories. "You made your bed, Hannah." "No," I said, my voice cracking. "Ethan made it for me." Her eyes narrowed. "Don't you dare drag your brother into this again." Ethan gave me that infuriating smile, calm, victorious. It's sad, really. You used to be so good at pretending you were better than us. That was it. Something inside me snapped. You liar, I said, my voice shaking. You forged those papers. You stole the money, and you used my name because you knew she'd believe you. Gasps filled the room. For a brief second, I thought my mother might hesitate, that she might at least wonder if I was telling the truth. But instead, she turned to the guests, her voice rising. You see, she said bitterly. This is what we've been dealing with. The disrespect. The accusations. The lies. Then she looked at me, really looked at me, and said the words that tore me apart. You don't deserve our family name. The room fell silent. Even the clock seemed to stop ticking. I could hear my own breath, uneven and shallow. I could feel my knees trembling, my hands going cold. Everyone's eyes were on me, judging, whispering, enjoying my collapse. I wanted to scream, to cry, to beg. But instead, I just stood there frozen, numb, hollow. Ethan leaned close, his voice a whisper meant only for me. You should have stayed quiet, Hannah. You'd still have a place here. I looked at him, my tears drying into something darker. You think you've won? I whispered back. You've only started something you can't control. He laughed softly. We'll see. My mother pointed toward the door. Leave. Before you humiliate yourself any further. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just picked up my purse and walked out. Outside, the wind hit my face like ice. The house behind me, the one I'd grown up in, loved, protected, now felt like a grave. I stood at the gate, trembling, and realized I had nowhere to go. Naomi was out of town. My phone buzzed with messages I couldn't bear to read. My whole world had shrunk into a single moment of silence. That night, I sat alone in a cheap motel, staring at the ceiling. I could still hear her voice, you don't deserve our name. I replayed it again and again, like a cruel song I couldn't turn off. Then my eyes fell on my laptop, the one I'd used to back up Ethan's files weeks ago. I opened it with shaking hands. And there it was, the folder labeled archive, full of proof. Real, undeniable proof. As I stared at those files, the tears finally stopped. My breathing slowed. They had taken everything from me, my family, my reputation, my place in the world. But they had also given me something in return, the truth. And with truth comes power. That night, I whispered to myself, almost like a prayer. They destroyed my name. Now I'll destroy their lies. It wasn't rage anymore. It was resolve, cold, steady, and final. Because from that moment, my revenge had already begun. The motel room smelled like stale coffee and old carpet, but it was quiet, and for the first time since that afternoon, quiet felt like an ally. I had no family, no title, no clerk privileges. All I had was the folder on my laptop and a heartbeat that had stopped trembling and started to plan. I began small. I copied every file from Ethan's hidden folder twice, then thrice. Bank statements, emails, fake invoices, the pattern was there like a map. Transfers timed to coincide with events, forged signatures that matched his hand more than mine, a string of shell accounts that funneled money away from the foundation. Each document was a small, cold proof that untied a lie. Naomi called the next morning and I told her everything, every raw detail. Her voice was steady, sharp. We do this right, Hannah, quietly, legally. We don't let them turn this into another spectacle. I wanted to scream with relief. She came back the next day with a lawyer's number and a hard stare that said she'd been waiting for this moment with me. I believe you, she said simply. Now we make them see the truth. Oliver showed up after that, calm, practical, with a camera and a laptop of his own. He had been my friend since childhood. He was steady in a way I'd forgotten I needed. You want to expose them in public? He asked, pausing as if testing me. There are safer ways. There are legal routes. But if you're set on truth being public, we'll do it clean. I told him about the gala, the charity night when the whole town would be watching. His eyes went cold. That could be the perfect stage, he said. But it's risky. They'll fight back. Are you ready to lose more? I was. I trained myself to be patient. I hired a private accountant through Naomi's contact, someone who could authenticate the forgeries without emotion. Slowly, methodically, we built a legal skeleton around my scattered proof. The accountant's reports were clinical and devastating: dates, discrepancies, signatures compared side by side. Every piece of paper became another nail in the false narrative Ethan had built. At night, I practiced how I would speak if the moment came, not like a victim, but like someone who had been wronged and would not be silent. "I trusted you," I rehearsed into the darkness. "You lied." The words hardened in my mouth. They felt like armor. But revenge is never only paperwork. I needed witnesses, voices that could not be dismissed as biased. I sent anonymous tips to a reporter I'd once helped at a community drive. She had always respected facts. I quietly met with a retired bank manager who confirmed the existence of shell transfers. I quelled my hunger for instant retribution and built something slower, undeniable truth, verified by people who didn't owe me anything. Still, the plan had teeth and risk. If I moved too soon, they'd bury me again. If I stayed hidden too long, they'd finish me off legally or socially. Each step required nerve. Each choice felt like balancing on glass. The night before the gala, I sat with Naomi and Oliver in a rented studio, watching the final presentation click into place. Timelines, scanned documents, video clips of Ethan's careless admissions, and a voiceover I had written, my voice, steady and controlled. We rehearsed the technical fail-safes, the legal citations, the moments when the crowd would gasp and when the cameras would catch Margaret's face. Naomi took my hand for a second and said, "This will change everything, for better or worse." I nodded, feeling the truth of it. I closed my eyes and thought of my mother's words, "You don't deserve our family name." The memory no longer burned, it focused. I was not doing this for revenge alone. I was doing it for my name, my dignity, and for the quiet girls who learned to hide while their brothers left with medals. Outside, the city hummed like nothing had happened. Inside, the lights of the studio felt like the eyes of the entire town. I opened my laptop, breathed in, and whispered to no one but myself, "Tonight, they will see me." Then I shut the lid and stepped into the dark, where the plan waited and the house of cards began to tremble. The Clark Foundation gala shimmered with money, champagne, and hypocrisy. Crystal chandeliers dripped golden light over polished marble floors. A string quartet played something soft and expensive. Everyone smiled too much, spoke too loudly, as if wealth could drown out guilt. I stood near the back, hidden among waiters and guests in black dresses. My palms were steady, my heartbeat precise, not from fear, but focus. I could see them across the room, my mother in her silver gown, radiant as always, Ethan at her side, shaking hands with donors, his laugh smooth and rehearsed. They looked untouchable. Perfect. The program began. My mother took the stage first, her voice carrying elegance and false warmth. "Tonight," she said, "we celebrate the Clark legacy, built on honesty, unity, and compassion." I nearly laughed. Those words used to make me ache. Now they just felt hollow. Ethan followed her, his tailored suit glinting under the lights. "Our family has always believed in integrity," he declared. "In lifting others up." The crowd applauded. Cameras flashed. And then, as planned, the screen behind him flickered. At first, no one noticed. Then the Clark Foundation logo dissolved into a spreadsheet, bank accounts, transaction trails, signatures. The room fell silent. Ethan froze mid-sentence, his voice cracking into confusion. What is this?" The footage rolled smoothly, Oliver's handiwork. A clean montage of forged documents, overlapping with Ethan's recorded calls. His voice filled the ballroom. "Transfer it under the Clark account. Hannah won't notice. She never does." Gasps rippled through the crowd like wind through leaves. People turned, whispering. The music had stopped, even the waiters stood still. My mother stepped forward, fury masked under her poise. "Turn it off," she snapped. But the projection didn't stop. Now came the video clip, a conversation between Ethan and the accountant, caught on camera. His words were clear. "Father's will was old. We adjusted it. Who'd question it? The girl barely talks to anyone." Silence. Pure, Suffocating silence. My chest felt tight, not from guilt, but from the release of years. The truth was alive now, too loud to bury. I walked forward slowly, through the murmuring crowd, heels clicking against marble. Every step sounded like a verdict. My mother's eyes widened when she saw me. Hannah. I stopped at the foot of the stage, meeting her gaze. Integrity, mother? My voice was calm, even. You built this legacy on lies. You disinherited me to protect him. You called me unworthy, invisible. But I watched. I listened. Ethan turned to me, pale, sweat forming at his temples. You think anyone will believe? They already do, I said, nodding toward the cameras flashing in every corner. The media's here. Donors. Trustees. The accountant who signed the report. And the lawyer who confirmed father's will. Naomi stepped forward from the audience, holding the legal folder like a blade. The trust documents have been verified. The real will, the one your father signed, names Hannah Clark as equal heir and board successor. The audience erupted in whispers. My mother's mask cracked, the fury underneath raw and trembling. You don't know what you've done, she hissed. I know exactly, I replied. You taught me well how to smile while destroying someone. The donors began leaving. A few trustees stood, murmuring about audits and ethics committees. Ethan tried to speak, but his voice faltered under the weight of exposure. Cameras caught everything, every twitch, every drop of sweat. And then, as if the room itself held its breath, I looked straight at my mother one last time. You said I didn't deserve the family name. But tonight, I gave it back its truth. She said nothing. Her silence was the sound of collapse. Security entered quietly, speaking to Ethan, who had gone rigid. He was led away in disbelief, muttering about misunderstandings, about mistakes. The crowd parted like a tide around him. When it was over, I stood alone under the stage lights, the same lights that had once made me feel small. They felt warm now, honest. Naomi touched my arm gently. It's done. I nodded. My eyes swept across the shattered calm of the ballroom, the broken smiles, the crumpled speeches, the cameras still rolling. For a moment, I felt everything: grief, vindication, exhaustion, freedom. And then I whispered, barely audible, but clear enough for the microphones to catch. You buried me once. I learned to rise underground. The room stayed silent, breathless, hanging on those words. And that's when I turned and walked out, leaving behind the chandeliers, the false glitter, and the family that had finally fallen under its own weight. Morning light has a strange kind of honesty. It shows everything exactly as it is. No filters, no chandeliers, no masks. When I woke the next day, the world outside my window looked new, quieter, lighter, as if it too had finally exhaled after years of holding its breath. The Clark mansion, once alive with servants and chatter, stood silent now. The news had broken before dawn. Ethan Clark and mother face inquiry over forgery and embezzlement allegations. The name that once commanded reverence was now a headline wrapped in scandal. I didn't feel joy reading it, only a calm, steady stillness. Justice has no thrill, it's just balance restored. I walked through the garden, the same garden where my mother once told me I was too ordinary to lead. The roses were dying in the cold, their petals scattered across the path. For a moment, I knelt beside one, brushing the frost away. I realized I didn't hate her anymore. What I felt was pity. Naomi found me there, her coat pulled tight against the wind. They're leaving the estate, she said softly. Your mother signed over the trust this morning. You're the official chair now. I looked toward the mansion's tall windows. Curtains drawn. No movement inside. She'll never forgive me, I murmured. Naomi gave a small, sad smile. She doesn't have to. You didn't fight her for forgiveness, Hannah. You fought for truth. Those words settled deep inside me. For the first time in years, they didn't sting, they healed. Later that week, I stood before the Clark Foundation board. The same room that once felt suffocating now felt open. I didn't deliver speeches or defend myself. I simply laid out the vision I'd built in silence all those years, a foundation that would finally serve people, not pride. The board voted unanimously. It wasn't triumph that filled me then, it was peace. When the meeting ended, I walked through the empty hall, my heels echoing softly. A portrait of my parents hung at the end of the corridor. I paused, studying their painted smiles, so regal, so certain. I whispered quietly, almost kindly, "You built an empire of appearances. I built a life out of what you left behind." That was my closure. In the weeks that followed, I didn't attend the press briefings or issue statements. I donated part of the estate to rebuild the orphanage, the one that had started everything. When people congratulated me, I only smiled and said, "Sometimes justice isn't loud. It just lasts." At night, when the house grew still, I would sit by the window with a cup of tea, watching the lights of Silverwood flicker below. I'd think about all those years I tried to be seen, loved, chosen, and how freedom came only when I stopped begging for it. The world remembers power. But I learned something greater: dignity doesn't shout. It stands. And maybe that's the true legacy, not the wealth, not the name, but the strength to walk away from the table where your worth was once debated. As I closed the window, I whispered one last truth, the kind I wish I'd known sooner. They can take your place, your name, your inheritance, but not your peace. Once you choose self-respect, no betrayal can own you. The night air felt softer after that. Quiet. Honest. And for the first time, I finally felt whole.